Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. Go ahead and let us know where you're tuning in the chat while everyone's filtering in. And while we're waiting for everyone to join us, I just wanted to share a couple of housekeeping items before we get started today. You may have noticed that your line has been muted. We are recording today's webinar. This just helps ensure excellent sound quality for everyone who views the recording. So if you have any questions during the presentation, don't be shy. Feel free to place them in the chat box. We'd love to hear from you during the webinar, and we'll try to answer as we go, or if we have some time at the end, we'll try to answer them as well. One thing to note about the chat box, there is a little drop down that determines who you send your chats to. So one option is host panelists and the other is everyone. So just make sure to change your drop down to say everyone so the entire audience can see your chats. So without further ado, let me hand it off first to our very esteemed Dr. Janet Ludwig, and she'll be introducing our speaker today, Dr. Heather Logan. Janet, thank you so much.
Thank you. It is so nice to be here. And can you go ahead and advance to the first slide? And that covers wanted to go over a little bit of who we are. We are the American College of Healthcare Sciences. We've been here since 1978. Specializes in online distance education. It was started by Doreen Peterson, who's a naturopathic doctor in New Zealand. And we have certificates, we have associate degrees, bachelor's degrees, and I'm very proud to say we have a doctorate degree, all in integrative health with specialties in aromatherapy, herbal medicine, or nutrition. And we are so pleased to have all of you here. I believe, do we have another slide relative to that? Or are we ready? I also want to make sure we go over the ACHS mission and vision. So important. We are here to lead the advancement of evidence-based integrative health and wellness education through experiential online learning and sustainable practices. So important in this day and age. Our vision, and for you, is to have integrative health and wellness education accessible to global communities, promoting sustainable and healthy futures for all. Next slide, I believe, is Heather, and I would love to I am honored to introduce Dr. Heather Logan. She is a distinguished expert in health and wellness with extensive experience in both Eastern and Western medicine. Her educational background includes a doctorate in chiropractic, master's in public health, and a master's in applied clinical nutrition, as well as she is a specialized chiropractic certification in pediatric care. She is also a diplomat in acupuncture, and she is a certified nutrition specialist. She is a dedicated practitioner, researcher, and educator, and we are privileged to have her teaching at the American College of Healthcare Sciences. And today, she will be discussing the innovative psychedelic assisted therapy for mitigating grief and trauma disorders with the natural compounds of 5-MeO-DMT and Ibogaine therapy. I'm pleased to introduce and turn it over to Dr. Logan.
Thank you so much, Dr. Janet, and thank you so much for joining me today. It's an honor to be presenting on this topic. It's very relevant. I'm sure you've seen it in social media, on the news. It's coming across policy now, and there's some wonderful organizations. So I actually had the opportunity to work with a facility down in Mexico offering this traditional healing. I went there this past January and was able to look into the research, discuss the research, and also learn a few things myself that I can help patients as well as educate the students and my peers on. So today we'll talk about the biochemistry. Of course, we'll introduce the plant medicine 5-MeO-DMT and Ibogaine, also known as Iboga. I want to look over the sources and just give a brief history so we can all gain an appreciation for this plant medicine. Look at the conditions supported, the pharmacokinetics and the pharmacodynamics with them. the benefits, what the current research shows, and I'm including all the links. I'm a very evidence-based, research-driven gal, and I used all the research from the last 3 years that's relevant. There's some mind-blowing research that I want to share with you today. I'll discuss my experience a little bit, and then, of course, open it up for questions at the very end, and looking forward to this. So let's start with 5-MeO-DMT. So 5-MeO is short for 5-methoxy-NN-dimethyltryptamine. It primarily affects serotonin receptors. So we're looking at the 5-HTA1 and T2. This will lead to, as an experience, an intense ego dissolution and non-dual experiences. And having gone through this plant medicine, I can testify that is exactly what it does. It's really an unmediated awareness, and when you're experiencing this plant medicine, you have a unity with everything in existence. So participants typically experience a deep spiritual realization, liberation, and actually a shift in the perception of reality, which allows it to be such a healing plant medicine. So this is the biochemical structure. The journey that you take with this plant medicine is very short. Sometimes it lasts 2 to 3 minutes. Some it can last up to 45 minutes. It just depends on the dose and the delivery format. Again, it's an intense ego dissolution, and participants typically experience what we call like a whiteout with it. And as I said, it's hard to describe, but you kind of experience this merge into this infinite consciousness. It's not a very visual psychedelic. It's more feeling, more awareness, and complete dissolution of self. 5-MeO-DMT is also the molecule we make 2 times in our life. We make it when we're born, and we make it when we die. So as a result, a lot of participants, when they experience this medicine, they will see themselves die. And that's where it gets its name, the ego killer or the ego dissolution. So I'm going to backtrack just a little bit. We know it works on the serotonin receptors, but let's refresh our biochemistry about exactly what serotonin is, right? So normal functioning, it's great for physical healing, sleep, mood, happy hormone. As a refresher, 80 to 95% of it is made in the gut. So that's truly why our gut is our second brain. 5% is roughly 5% is made in the brain. So serotonin is not only important for mood, it's important for memory and learning, decision making, helps with managing aggression, focus, again, digestive system, sleep, and then also appetite. So if you've known anybody or if you've experienced being on an SSRI, you know exactly it does truly regulate all of these aspects in our lives. It's not just about being happy. So looking back at the history of it, you know, I'm always curious because I love history. How did it come to be? Who's been using this for centuries? What we know with a lot of these alternative medicines across the board is we've been using them for centuries, and now we're seeing the beautiful connection with the research. So it's been used traditionally by the Colmac, the Seri people of Mexico, many indigenous tribes of the Amazon. It's also known as bufo, and jokingly, people will say you lick the toad. That's because it comes from a toad, the Colorado River toad. But I do want to mention there's many different plant sources. With nature, you know, there's not just one source, right? So it comes from different seeds, different root grasses, resins, root stalks. So it's not just from the bufo toad. As far as conditions go, here's what I really love to share and show you. A 2019 study showed, and this is out of Johns Hopkins, you'll notice that I'm in Ohio, so Ohio State's doing research on psychedelics, Stanford's leading the way. A lot of these universities and medical institutions are looking into this plant medicine. So this is really cool. Looking back at 2019, Johns Hopkins noticed a single use, just one, led to significant improvements that can last weeks to months. And this was published in the American Journal of Drug and Alcohol Abuse. So treatment depression and then treatment-resistant depression. And if you're a provider or you've experienced this with either yourself or a loved one, depression's hard. It's a lot of times it's a guessing game with what medication works, what doesn't work. Sometimes patients are on one, two. So the fact that a single use made such a difference is pretty impressive. What we're seeing a lot with the veterans and first responder healing is it's significant for PTSD. So the cool thing about this, for me as a practitioner and with alternative medicine, I want to get to the root cause. I just don't want to mask the symptoms. Let's fix it. So with this, it actually rewires that trauma-based thought patterns. The other neat thing is these small scale studies actually shows it allows for reprocessing of repressed emotions and leads to relief of trauma-related symptoms. Yes, counseling helps. Yes, CBT helps. Yes, EMDR helps. Yes, all that is absolutely wonderful. Self-care, you name it. However, nothing quite rewires the brain from the research like the psychedelics do. So that's a really neat and promising avenue for it. The other really neat thing, again, we're seeing it with veterans, first responders, and then again, the general population is addiction. So it resets, when it rewires the brain pathways, it resets the reward pathways in the brain and it breaks that compulsive behavior. So out of a study in addiction biology in 2022, it also led to greater emotional insight and motivation to change. And this is a really good, I put the link down below for you. Yale Medicine has a great, if you like the biochemistry and the neuropathophysiology, on how an addicted brain works and the dopamine pathways. So this actually does rewire that, again, with often one use. It also helps with cluster headaches and chronic pain. This is through the tryptamine action. If you've seen somebody in practice or yourself or again a loved one have cluster headaches, these are notoriously hard to resolve and address and improve. They follow a circadian rhythm. Medications aren't fantastic with them, and they can really be debilitating. So the action with the tryptamine is it actually is involved in psychedelic stimulants, anti-migraine medications, and sleep aids. But the important thing to think about is it's a precursor to serotonin and melatonin, right? So getting back to that brain chemistry. We've seen in the studies that DMT also has a neuroplastic component to it. So what that does, if we think way back to bio, there is glial-derived neurotrophic factor and then brain-derived neurotrophic factor. So it actually increases BDNF to promote new little synapses coming up, rewiring. There's pruning, new pathways are formed, there's healing, and the really neat thing is not only is there reprocessing of trauma and emotions and healing, but it allows for learning of new skills. So after a lot of these plant medicines, they say to take up a new skill, whether that's a new language, new hobby, getting back to creative writing, journaling, painting, whatever your passion is, because your brain is such a sponge with these new neuroplastic activities. So how does it work from a pharmacokinetic perspective? Absorption's super fast. So from my experience with DMT, it was inhalation and it's very rapid. For me, you inhale, you count backwards from 10. For myself, when they did 10, 9, 8, I felt it at 8, and that was it. It's very, again, it's very, very short. So oral ingestion is actually not effective because of the MAO breakdown in the gut. And of course, you do have to have a thorough medical history when going through this type of plant medicine because it can interact with MAOs. Right? Distribution, as I said, it hit me in 2 seconds. It quickly crosses that blood-brain barrier because of its lymphophilic activity, and it peaks. Seconds to minutes, you are in that plant medicine, but again, it doesn't last very long. It's metabolized in the liver, as many things are, right, by monoamine oxidase A, and then it's converted into 5-hydroxy-DMT, and then specifically the CYP2D6 enzymes also further break it down into the metabolism byproducts. It's eliminated by urine within a few hours, lasts 10 to 45 minutes with excretion with a half-life, and then the effects, you don't feel it after it's out of your system. It's not something that lasts long at all, but that rewiring does last for quite a while. So looking at how exactly it works, again, looking at the neurochemistry a little bit. So we have the agonists, which further promote activations, and then we have antagonists that inhibit, right? Just like we have antagonistic people, same kind of concept. These actually act as agonists. So they are serotonin receptor agonists, again, through that 5-HT1A and HT2A receptors. HT1A specifically works beautifully for anxiety, depression, and that's what it gives it the effects. HT2A gives it that psychedelic mystical experience. So when you combine both of those, you've got a powerhouse of plant medicine. It has weak dopaminergic and adrenergic activity. It doesn't really impact dopamine, but it can influence arousal and consciousness. It does something too, as far as the default mode network, it inhibits it. So that actually leads to ego dissolution and therefore that altered consciousness. So just a word on the DMN. Scientists believe that's truly the seat of the ego in the brain. And that network is what allows psychedelics to have their enhanced brain activity, performance, well-being. So with these plant medicines, yes, they're great for addiction. Yes, they're great for PTSD, for mental health. However, they're just great for wellness too, which is beautiful. There's a saying, one of my mentors always says, if you're at zero, if you're below zero, it brings you back up to zero. So if you're a -10, it brings you back up to zero. If you're at zero, if you're great, it takes you even up higher to +10. So they also kind of work like adaptogenics, depending on what your brain and your body and your biochemistry needs. So let's dive into the research a little bit more. This one came out last July out of Molecular Psychiatry. What they found is that it alters plasticity-related gene expression and anti-anxiety effect with stressed mice. So what they did control, they had stressed mice and then with 5-MeO-DMT and then placebo. The stressed 5-MeO-DMT treated mice, actually, even though they were stressed, they had lower corticosteroid serum levels, and they actually had less anxious behavior 5 days after treatment compared to the stressed mice that did not have 5-MeO-DMT in their system. And again, it works through the 5-HT1A pathway. And again, I put the neurochemistry down there if you're really interested in that, and then the link too. So it helps with stress adaptation because of that rewiring potential and that neuroplasticity. This one is really neat. This came out last April as well. For alcohol use disorder, what they found is it helps with mood-related comorbidities that actually address craving. And the catch is improve successful rehabilitation. So again, how many times do we know of somebody that's gone through rehabilitation? 1, 2, 3, 4 times. They've done the support network, they've done the self-care, they've gone through all of it, but there's still those pathways. So this helps with rewiring. This one is looking at, or this is the same one, but it's looking at neuroimaging. So there's only 2 studies right now in the world that looked at 5-MeO-DMT with alcohol use disorder. They did an EEG and then a CT. And the really neat thing, this is cool to me, it looked at the different waves. So the gamma waves, the theta waves, and then the cross activity between the waves. It significantly increased gamma waves in the brain. So that helps with ego dissolution, inflection point. It significantly increased the theta waves. So there's that anti-anxiety, increased in the parasympathetic, so that rest digest, decreased in your sympathetic, so your fight or flight. And then it also, which is even cooler, it increased coherence across the bands. So it reorganized executive control networks, further promoting that neuroplastic hypothesis with classic psychedelics. The other way that we increase brain activity like this with the waves is meditation. So this is just one more tool in our toolkit to increase that. And this is just an overview. I wanted to put this here at the different waves, the different hertz, and what each wave was responsible for clinically. So looking at Iboga slash Ibogaine. Iboga comes from the Tabernaceae iboga, which is a shrub out of Central West Africa, Gabon, the Congo. It's actually derived from a root bark. And if you look at the history of it, the Bwiti culture has used it for centuries. It's used as a coming of age practice. The shamans will use it to talk to their ancestors, communicate with the spirit world. It helps with coming to terms with death. And the really neat thing is they'll use it for low doses because of heightened senses for hunting, endurance, and vitality. And some of these retreats, what they'll do is somebody stays up with these participants all night. So they'll take low doses for the same reason, heightened senses, stay awake, longer endurance, again, microdoses. When we're talking about plant medicine like 5-MeO, Ibogaine for therapeutic purposes, mostly we're talking about flood doses. So just massive doses, overloading the system, lighting up the neurons. The lower doses is microdosing. The really neat thing with Iboga is it contains at least a dozen indole alkaloids, giving it many therapeutic properties. So as I said, many indigenous cultures in Gabon, the Congo, have used this. Recently, in 1930, French and Belgian scientists isolated Ibogaine, and that is the primary psychoactive alkaloid. And they noticed, hey, this actually helps with fatigue and depression. Really neat, in 1962, Howard Lotsof, who was a heroin addict, came across it, took it, noticed, woke up the next morning, said, hey, I don't want heroin. Never touched it again. And then there was a little bit of research between that day and the 70s. And then in the 70s, it became classified as a Schedule I drug. Now in Canada, interesting enough, it wasn't outlawed until recently, 2012, 2010-ish. It was kind of in that same category as kava as a supplement. And then we noticed, oh my goodness, this can really cause some cardiac side effects, and they classified it as a Schedule I. So it wasn't that long ago that it was being used in Canada for addiction. Again, many sources, Tabernaceae iboga, different plant species. It's also synthetic. You can make it synthetically. The plant is on the right. I actually had ChatGPT come up with that little figure cartoon guy when I was in the medicine, journeying with the medicine. That's how he came to me. AI is really cool. It does some really neat things, and it was spot on. That's exactly what I saw when I was in the plant medicine. So let's talk about some of the conditions. So addiction, right? Fantastic for opioid reduction. It will reduce withdrawal symptoms, often after one session. Most of the time, and I will say most, individuals go through this medicine once. Rarely do they go through it 2 or 3 times. because once is often enough. It is one of the strongest psychedelics on the planet that we know of. Again, it resets the brain's dopamine system, so it helps with cravings. And the beauty of it is it helps with long-term relapse prevention when combined with therapy. So with a lot of these plant medicines, there's something we talk about called integration. So what's that self-care we're doing? What's the grounding, the community, all the things that we need to do to help keep those neurons and our hormones happy. For stimulants, it's great with altering dopamine receptor sensitivity. It makes stimulants less appealing. Again, just like 5-MeO, it'll increase neuroplasticity, helping the brain heal from long-term drug use. Alcohol, nicotine reduces withdrawal symptoms. And the beauty, again, it helps address psychological roots of addiction, specifically with trauma, depression. 2018 study in Current Drug Abuse Reviews found that it reduces opioid withdrawal symptoms and decreases relapse rates. And then 22 in Frontiers of Pharmacology, it showed neuroplastic effects that resets that addiction-related brain circuit. So with some of these plant medicine approaches, what they'll do is they'll do Iboga or Ibogaine and then wait a day or two and then do 5-MeO DMT. The Iboga is what we call sandblasting. So it just goes in there, lights up all those neurons, rewires the brain. And then the 5-MeO DMT kind of polishes you up from the inside out. With depression, wonderful for depression. It will boost brain-derived neurotrophic factor, similar to DMT. It resets serotonin and dopamine systems, similar to psilocybin. Many report an antidepressant effect lasting weeks to months after a single session. And out of neuropharmacology in 2023, it's a rapid acting antidepressant. And I will attest to that. After the plant medicine, you're in what we call the glow for quite a while. It stays in your system as nor-ibogaine, which is the converted component, for up to 3 months. PTSD, this is where it helps, again, a lot of our first responders, a lot of our vets. It allows for emotional processing of trauma. It allows patients to reframe painful memories and detach themselves. And out of Journal of Psychedelic Studies, they found it improved PTSD symptoms and actually encouraged emotional resilience, which if you have had or you know somebody with PTSD, that's priceless right there, having that emotional rebound ability. This is something I love. Parkinson's runs in my family, as well as a lot of autoimmunes. So anytime I can look at the research with neurodegenerative disorders, that's huge. What we're seeing now is a lot of microdosing with Iboga because it's great for the neurodegenerative disorders. So for Parkinson's, it actually slows that degeneration and improves motor control. It'll stimulate. Now remember, I said brain derived earlier with DMT and Iboga, but Iboga also stimulates glial cell-derived neurotrophic factor. So it protects dopamine-producing neurons. In 2021, in experimental neurology, it actually increased dopamine resilience in Parkinson's models. Really beautiful. Alzheimer's and dementia may reduce amyloid plaque buildup. MS reduces neural inflammation and can actually help repair damaged myelin. Crazy. And then, of course, for the well-being, it's life-changing, right? It allows for ego dissolution. It gives you that psycho-spiritual healing and, of course, personal growth. So pharmacokinetics, looking at absorption, again, it's taking orally, typically as a capsule, but you can take it as like a powder or a bark or tea. Bioavailability is about 40 to 50%, and the first pass metabolism is through the liver. Plasma peak concentration is 1 to 2 hours after ingestion, so it takes a little bit, and the flood doses are based on kilograms per body weight. Metabolism, so it's again primary metabolized by the liver by that CYP2D6. It's converted to nor-ibogaine, and that's stored in the fat cells. Nor-Ibogaine, longer half-life, more selective for serotonin receptors and opioid receptors. And again, it's stored in the fat, so it's that slow release over time. It's out of your system half-life wise, 4 to 7 hours. Nor-Ibogaine, 48 hours at the most. However, some studies are showing up to 3 months. And then it's excreted through the feces and urine, sometimes with some sweat. Here's all the pathways that it works on. Multiple receptors, so it's a highly neuroactive compound. So there's that serotonin system again. So it hits 2, it hits 1. So it leads to that psychedelic experience with the 2 receptors. With 1, it's that antidepressant. So it works together to enhance neuroplasticity, alters your perception, your cognition, how you're processing things. It's a weak dopamine reuptake inhibitor, which can contribute to addiction interrupting effects, which is good. It modulates that mesolimbic dopamine pathway, so it resets those dopamine pathways disrupted by addiction. And goodness knows we're a dopamine overloaded society anyway. So as a result, it reduces cravings for drugs, increases motivation, and then it also works on the opioid system. So it modulates pain, helps with withdrawal symptoms, and again, just allows for longer term effects on addiction and recovery. It also works on MDA receptors, so similar to ketamine, but unlike ketamine where you have to have numerous interventions, typically this is a one and done. It reduces excitotoxicity, so possibly that's why it's protecting with neurodegradation. And then again, clinical impact helps with neurodegeneration, supports memory, emotional processing. And then with the sigmoid 1 receptor, it helps with neuroplasticity, helps with cellular stress response. It's great in the literature for helping with brain injury and stroke, and can enhance long-term recovery. So I just wanted to put this up here. This is a comparison. I always get asked by those curious, how does it compare to mushrooms, right? So here's Ibogaine on the left. We've got 5-MeO-DMT on the right, and then of course psilocybin in the middle. Ibogaine, the journey at the minimum is 8 hours. For some people, it lasts 36 hours. Mushrooms, 4 to 6, 5-MeO, 3 minutes up to 45 minutes. No metabolite with psilocybin, nor Ibogaine is the metabolite for Ibogaine, no metabolite for 5-MeO-DMT. Primary mechanism with the receptors there. And again, the really neat thing is a lot of these, as you can see, have neuroplastic effects, good for addiction. Mushrooms aren't as good, but I'm sure the research is coming. And then the only concern, and I can talk about this later, is the risk of cardiotoxicity with Ibogaine. This is not something that it needs to be taken lightly. It needs to be in a medical facility under medical supervision because it can increase the QT wave of the heart, leading to arrhythmias. So in the facility I was in, of course, EKG before you go down, EKG when you get down there. When you're in the medicine, you're hooked up to an EKG, you have a pulse ox on, you have a port in for IVs, super, super, super well monitored. Nothing like psilocybin and 5-MeO-DMT where you don't need any of that. So you do have to definitely be careful with Ibogaine. So here's the research. Let's talk about the research because some of this is just amazing to me. I'm always blown away. So this is just a case study, and I know in research, case studies are down here. We want those randomized double-blind clinical trials way up here. However, it's a start. So this one was from a brachial plexus nerve root avulsion. And if you're a clinician, when you tear the nerve root from the brachial plexus, debilitating, hard to recover. Surgery is an option. Many times there's multiple surgeries. Most of the time these end up in amputations. So this was published in Frontiers of Pain and Research. And what they found with this is, again, it helps with neuroplasticity. So it regrows neural networks. And for this patient, it significantly helped in pain and recovery. So that's a really neat case study looking at it from that perspective. And this is the heavy hitter that's going to blow your minds. So this one was looking at multiple sclerosis, and they noticed significant lesion reduction and neural structural changes. This was just published out of Frontiers. So, of course, we know it helps with neurotrophic factors, both brain and glial derived. So what they noticed is there's two case studies. This is just one patient. So what I want to point out here is patient one. This is at 1 month, right? So here's a lesion you can see here. Here's a lesion on this one, and then here's a lesion here, all right? This one is at 3 months. Look at the difference there. Look how smaller those lesions are at 3 months. Amazing. It literally regrew white matter in the brain. Really, really neat. Again, it's a case study, but it's a start. And the other really neat thing, that same patient, 1 day after, noted resolution of bladder issues. 2 months, noticed fatigue scores dropped by 92%. Bladder control issues completely resolved. Physical components increased 24%. Mental components improved by 42%. And despite previous challenges walking, because the coordination issue, and if you've had an MS patient, you know this, later they participated in a 200-mile ultra marathon. So just really, really encouraging. I've had MS patients in my practice. It's hard. There's not great medications. So this, to me, is promising. This is one looking at veterans. So this is the infamous Stanford study. So they looked at magnesium ibogaine therapy with TBIs and significant improvements in reductions in PTSD, depression, anxiety 1 month after. No serious side effects for these veterans, and just more improved functionality, which for these guys was huge. And then I just wanted to mention, so Ibogaine and 5-MeO-DMT are the big ones that I had the pleasure of journeying with. There's also one called ayahuasca. If we have to categorize psychedelics, Ibogaine is like the grandfather. He's a very masculine energy. Ayahuasca is the grandmother. She's very nurturing. Ibogaine is like strapping yourself to a rocket and getting shot off into space. Ayahuasca is this grandmother that draws you down to the earth, roots you to your ancestors. So with that, there's these components. So it has DMT qualities with MAOIs. It's a traditional Amazonian brew. And again, it has alkaloids as the constituents. It contains N,N-DMT, so it's a different form of DMT, and it's combined with MAO inhibitors. So again, you have to be careful with medical history. The MAOIs allow DMT to be orally active, resulting in a 4 to 6 hour visionary, which again allows for therapeutic effects. And again, it's a deep introspection. She's kind of this teacher that takes you by the hand. Very similar to 5-MeO-DMT, and this is just, for example, a ayahuasca ceremony. And there's different analogs that can be used, but it's typically drank as a tea. Slow onset, 30 to 60 minutes after you drink it, but it can last 4 to 6 hours. Not as long as Ibogaine, but long enough. And it's more visual, more introspection. With these plant medicines, with the exception of 5-MeO-DMT, with Ibogaine and ayahuasca, there's purging. So purging can be diarrhea, it can be vomiting. For me, it was crying. I cried for like 10 hours. And that's the body just getting rid of whatever it needs to get rid of. So that's kind of the cleansing process. What we're looking at ayahuasca for in the research is processing trauma, enhancing emotional resilience, and promoting long-term psychological healing. So looking at depression and mood, it's a rapid-acting antidepressant. Again, works on the serotonin receptors and neuroplastic effects. Great for anxiety and PTSD, trauma-related symptom resolution, and then addiction, right? Similar to the other ones, it helps in breaking those addictive behaviors. Alcohol, tobacco, opioids allows for that emotional healing, why are they, addicted, what's going on at the root level, and allows for that introspection where I don't know about you guys, but for me, I'm type A. I have a hard time getting out of my own head and letting things go and addressing my emotions. Plant medicines are beautiful for that. It also has neurological and cognitive effects. So again, there's that BDNF increase with the neurotrophic factors, and then again, emotional reprocessing. So it can improve relationships, more self-awareness. This is really neat. So there's a study that came out that showed that it reduced inflammation and also improved the gut microbiome. We're always talking about the gut microbiome. The alkaloids can influence that gut health, and then, of course, impact the gut-brain connection. And then, like most psychedelics, leads to spiritual and existential healing. It's really great for end-of-life anxiety relief for terminal patients. They do truly help for increased life satisfaction, more gratitude, personal transformation, just beautiful things. And this is really neat. This is a newer one that just came out. Again, we know mystical experiences, ego dissolution. It works on 2A and 1A receptors, but it also, there's a hypothetical anti-tumoral therapeutic effect with ayahuasca that we're looking into. So I included that. If you want to look into that, it breaks it down. So it's also being looked at from that perspective with tumor activity. And then, with my experience, again, I went down to Mexico. It was a very medical facility. We had a doctor on staff. We had a nurse for each of us. We had an EKG before we went down. I was there for about 5 or 6 days. The meals were great. I had to take a picture of the meals because we had these beautiful chefs that you could taste the love in the food. And it was all organic. It was all clean. We did, on our first day down there, we did a temazcal. So if you've not done a traditional sweat lodge, they're wonderful. It's a good test of endurance. So you do a temazcal, you do some breath work, you do some yoga, some Reiki, some massage, you do the 2 plant medicines, and then you do a lot of growth, right? A lot of growth and healing. The groups are small. In my group, there were 4 other ladies. And this is the mattress that we're on. You can see my EKG leads next to me. This was before the medicine kicked in. You have an eye mask that you put on. There's a little purge bucket next to you if you want. Kleenex, which I used a lot of Kleenex. And then, of course, water. And you get an IV before you go into the medicine and when you get out of the medicine, and you're very well taken care of. And then I also wanted to mention, the call for veteran healing. I just want to raise awareness. Having worked in the VA when I first got out of school, it's so important that we help this community. So we lose between roughly 20 to 45% of veterans to suicide. It's heartbreaking. Suicide rate is twice of that of non-veterans, and 30% of global war on terrorism veterans suffer from PTSD. So that's why we're seeing so much research done for these vets and even first responders to, again, help them heal, get the support that they need so they can lead happy and fulfilled lives. And then just some resources that I wanted to put down for you. Vet Solutions is an organization that will grant grants to veterans to go down and receive the psychedelic medicine for healing. The 343 Fund is out of New York. It's one for first responders. So police, fire, EMS, you apply for the grant and then they send you down there for the healing. Wonderful integration support networks. You have coaching sessions. Again, when I went to Ambio, I had a coach, 2 coaching sessions before, 2 coaching sessions after. You're very well cared for. MAPS, if you want to learn more about psychedelics, MAPS is the place for you. And then if you want to learn more about my journey in depth, I have a podcast, so my resource is there. I also have interviewed the founder of Ambio. on my podcast, as well as the founder of the 343 Fund, Angela Scudin, who are just beautiful human beings. And I'm so thankful that they've introduced me to plant medicine, because when I got my master's in nutrition and my doctorate and my master's in public health, we did not learn this. And it's plant medicine that, again, has been around for centuries.
This is fantastic, Dr. Logan. And as a nutritionist and a biochemist, I just applaud your comments regarding not knowing how to use the plant, natural plants, what's all around us. So this is fantastic. And you have a wonderful group of questions here. Can you see the chat? Or shall I go ahead and read some of these with you?
I can, yes.
Okay, you can go in there and see them. Lots of questions.
Yes. I'm just going back to the beginning so I make sure I don't miss anybody.
Good idea.
So one of the questions was, does this work similarly to NAD with regards to addiction? I honestly, I don't know. I know there's a lot, and you actually answered that, Janet. I don't know much about NAD for addiction, do you?
No, only that it's changing your availability of the free radicals and scavenging them. So I'm not aware of how it would possibly interfere with that, but it is a interesting concept to see if there would be any changes.
Yeah, I have to look at the research. I have seen there's now a market for NAD injections that you can get shipped to your house and you can self-inject. So I know there's a surgence in that. But again, I'm always about fixing it. So like rewiring the brain is the big one for me.
Good point.
So one of the questions was precautions for patient with MCAs. I'm sorry, what are MCAs?
Mast cell
Oh, the
syndrome.
mast cell.
Yeah.
I don't know. You meet with a provider. They do a thorough medical history. And I don't know. I know, for me having two autoimmunes, uh, I didn't have any reaction. That would be a question for the facility. And again, you'd have to look at the research, but I honestly don't know. In my group, there was, and I know there's so many from different walks of life. In my group, there was a woman in her 70s that had blood pressure, cholesterol issues, and she went through the plant medicine. There's a woman who had MS or has MS, two failed back surgeries, smoking addiction, opioid addiction. When we left, she had zero pain, not smoking. And now we're waiting for her MS scans to come back at the 3-month mark. But I don't know about mast cell.
Right,
That's a great question.
right.
Yeah, I would lead that to the physicians.
And the immunologist because of the histamine reaction and everything. But we've got
Right.
some questions down here about MS. So that's interesting that you added that and you observed that.
Yeah, I have not had the pleasure of working with psilocybin yet. I plan to do a plant medicine journey this fall to experience that. And yeah, I did give you the comparison with psilocybin at the end there. Yeah, and I love somebody brought up the spiritual setting and the spiritual woo. What I love, having gone through, the Temescal, the breath work, the Reiki, the yoga, all of these different things, they do test your mental endurance. How long can you stay in a clay pot with 6 people chanting and drumming in super hot degrees? All of that, you lead to that spiritual community, mystical experience of the plant medicine. And I think it serves the medicine well. From a provider perspective, don't think I would have gotten the same journey if I was strapped to a medical bed, not having gone through all of that. So I know like everything they do is very methodical. And it's so funny because coming from my medical background, when, you do these coaching sessions, they're like, the plant has a spirit. And I'm like, excuse me, the plant has a spirit? Plants don't have spirits. Plants do indeed have spirits. I've met Iboga. He has a spirit. And you do have to, they say to approach the plant medicine with gratitude and respect. It sounds silly, one of the women in my group, the 70-year-old, she's like, I spent 70 years building my ego. I'm not letting my ego go. She had diarrhea and vomiting the whole night. She had an awful journey. The next morning, we didn't see her. We saw her 2 days later, and she was very grateful. Ego was gone. So for me, when I felt the plant medicine kick in, I just, please be gracious, please be kind, but please show me what I need to see for optimal wellness and healing. So to me, it's nice to have that spiritual connection to the plants.
Well, that's great.
So yeah, you do. Oh, sorry, Janet.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah,
Oh,
please.
I was just going to say there was one about SSRIs. So you do have to dose off of certain medications. On your application, they look through all of that. Some you can stay on, some you have to come off because of those interactions. Um, for me, no, being as scientific as I am, I looked at the deaths related with Iboga because I have 3 little kids and I did not want to die in Mexico. So the cases of the deaths were people who were on opioids still, were not honest, and then had those cardiac arrhythmias. So again, they do P tests, they do blood work, they do all of that. A, to make sure that you're telling the truth, but to B, make sure that you are able to journey with that medicine. And again, a great medical question with somebody that has gone through a liver transplant, that would be up to the facility, just depending on what they deemed, because that's definitely outside of my scope to comment on. Yes, so chronic pain studies are going on out there. I know, like fibromyalgia, for complex regional pain syndrome. I'm sure that would, I don't know if they're specifically studying that, but I know they're looking at it for pain. And again, somebody asked the company Ambio. It's the same one that was on Sean Ryan podcast, Rogan. Now they are, of course, working in Texas to pass a bill for psychedelic healing for mental health. So things are getting in motion. There's a couple companies out there. Mexico is the only place in the world right now to go for psychedelic healing for Ibogaine. For ayahuasca journeys, it's not legal in the United States. You have to go to Costa Rica, mostly for that one. Yeah.
Your work with veterans has been phenomenal and addressing that. Indeed, that is such a very real problem.
Yes, yep. And if you guys want to look more into this, Marcus and Amber Capone, they are the ones. He is a veteran. They started the Vet Solutions because he went down there for healing because he was at his wit's end and he had this life-changing experience, and that's why they started the foundation. And then Angela Scudin, who started the 343 Fund, she tragically lost her husband. He was a first responder, and she has had chronic Lyme's, autoimmune, mold toxicity. She went through like bee venom therapy, ketamine injections. She was on thousands and thousands of dollars of prescriptions with no avail, and she was healed, so to speak. I mean, she doesn't have any of that right now because of Ibogaine and ayahuasca, which again is why she started the foundation in honor of her husband.
That's wonderful. Do you have any comments on using them together? Are they ever used together, the 5-MeDMT, and they do with the Ibogaine? Isn't that correct or not? Yeah.
Yeah, they do typically use 5-MeO with Ibogaine. You never do Ibogaine and ayahuasca, and typically there's a waiting period of a few months for that. Um, with psilocybin, a lot of the journeys you'll do psilocybin and then wait a day or two, and then again do 5-MeO DMT. Um, for me, 5-MeO was something scary, but I definitely want to experience again because the neurological healing was just amazing.
Interesting. Interesting. And none of this is in the United States, correct?
Not yet, not yet. We
Okay.
are working behind the scenes with getting some bills and just raising awareness.
Right. And pharmaceutical companies, I would also think would have an interest in it to isolate the compounds. Or these are pure extracts, I presume, from the plant, or not necessarily. These are tinctures, correct?
No, they're pure extracts.
Okay, they are pure. Okay.
Yeah, the name of the facility I went to was Ambio, Ambio. Yep. Yeah, that's a great comment about knowing, about your facilitators and organizations. You just can't go anywhere. So I did a lot of research on this facility, looking at the medical team. It was funny because 2 weeks before I went down, there was one of my patients showed me something on her phone. She goes, "Hey, Dr. Heather, be careful down in Mexico. Somebody just died from doing Oh, combo. So combo is an extract from a toad, and you burn it. Typically, you burn it on the skin. This individual, I think, was a celebrity down in Mexico or Venezuela or somewhere like that. She drank it, and a lot of depending on how you ingest it, you can get a reaction. And so she ended up dying, and at least the last I read, they didn't find the shaman. So you have to be careful, make sure it's all on the up and up. And again, having a good integrative team before you go down, during, and after, making sure you're in a safe space.
Of course. Good advice. It's been a wonderful discussion. Any other questions? I think you have piqued all of our interest relative to this. So I do want to thank you, Dr. Logan, and the audience here for their wonderful comments. We have some very good things coming along here. So thank you very much. And please, you're available to contact, right, Dr. Logan? Perfect.
I am.
All
Yep.
right. All right. Well, thank you so very much. We will see you all later then. Bye.
Thank you.